This is called the necessary evil. Proverbs 16. Pride before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. How many have ever heard this scripture? How many understand that God is smarter than you? Remember that show they had, Are You Smarter Than an 8th Grader? Yeah. Found out that most of America wasn't, all 5th grader. Most of America wasn't as smart as the 5th graders. How many understand that God is smarter than the devil? Amen. In fact, the devil is king over the soulish realm, which actually is completely predictable. God knows that Satan will always respond predictably. So, when God pushes the right buttons, Satan will always respond, and God uses his energy against him. He's like the eternal born loser, and he can't help himself. The Bible says pride before destruction. The word before, when he says pride before, that word before is a Hebrew word, and it literally translates employed for a purpose. Pride employed for a purpose. So God employs pride for what? Destruction. God already knows how certain situations are going to turn out just because things are wired to respond a certain way. So he employs pride for the purpose of destruction. Destruction means breaking stuff. It means to breach things. It means to open up or rupture something. Has anybody else noted how offended the liberals have become in this nation? Especially like recently. How many have wondered why? Doesn't it seem like it's increasing like exponentially? Think about it. Why are people suddenly offended by statues of Robert E. Lee or George Washington or Ben Franklin? How many want to know why? It's because they lost. They lost an election, and when pride got hurt, they all of a sudden began a tantrum movement. Because we won't lose, we won't take this line down. God knows when certain things are wired a certain way, always how they're going to respond. All God has to do is push a certain button and that energy is always deployed. So they put them on buses and they go from city to city with the intent of destruction. Why? Because pride always occurs before destruction. That's a natural way of looking at it. It works in the spirit realm also. Remember, Jesus said that in order to enter the kingdom way, the church must first experience a birth. How many know that births come with a lot of trauma and a lot of drama? How many have ever watched a birth or experienced a birth? Matthew 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one statue, stone. This makes you wonder. Almost like Jesus knew what he was talking about. That shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, and he said, Okay, we didn't get what you were talking about. So tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. We were preaching on some of this last week. How many understand that you are in, but not of, the world and its systems? How many believe that? How many believe that you're in the world, but not of the world? How many understand that you were literally a bystander, just an observer? How many understand when it comes to the things of the world, you are not of it? Does anybody get that? So do you understand that you're literally just a bystander, an observer? Act like it. How many know you were never called to be an activist? I know this is hard to deal with sometimes when you see people out of control. Look at verse 6 again. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Jesus said, don't get sucked into the world's drama, because you are not a natural realm participant. Be not troubled. How many know it's a great distraction to become emotionally involved in the ways of the world? How many know it's draining to become involved in the world's politics or in the world's economics? How many know it's hard not to just continually consider what's going on when you see what's going on? Jesus said there will come a time of great chaos and confusion in the world around you. What should be your response to what you see in the world? Anger? How many have ever watched the left, the way they act, like a bunch of crybabies? Isn't it easy to get angry at them? Isn't it easy when you see these fascist groups beating up innocent bystanders? Isn't it easy to be angry and go? I saw a video where there were some protesters, and there was a wounded veteran, and he couldn't walk. He had either no legs or something was wrong, but he's in a wheelchair. And I watched these anti-fascist group come up and dump water on him in his wheelchair. And then people start throwing punches. Isn't it easy to get angry? What should be my response to the world? Insecurity? Should I buy gold and silver so that I have financial security in case the money systems collapse? I'm an observer. I'm a bystander. What should be my response? What's the response of a bystander, of an observer? How many of you ever go to football games or baseball games or any kind of sporting event? How many of you in the middle just run down onto the field and say, give me that ball? You're an observer, aren't you? So what should be my response? Should it be fear? Should I store up food and just in case the stores run out of food? And then it'll be like Houston. The only thing that's left is tofu. How many know that that's what the natural world does? What did Jesus say? Do not be distracted. Literally, don't be troubled. He said, don't even pay attention. Don't even look. How many know when you look, you get involved? Then it consumes you. And then you talk about it. Did you see what's going on? Did you see what's going on? I saw what was going on. Did you hear? Luke 21:28. And when these things begin to come to pass, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws nigh. This is such a good verse. Lift up your sight. Lift up your heads. He says, look through a different view. See through God's eyes. Seek to see the way of the kingdom. When these things begin to come to pass, begin to seek to see through the kingdom. Your redemption draws nigh. How many were convinced in the past that meant the rapture was coming? That's what they preached in the 70s. I've heard them. How many want to know what redemption says? When he says, lift up your head, redemption. That word redemption. When Jesus said it, the Greek literal translation is, he said, lift up your head, lift up your vision, see through the eyes of the kingdom. Why? Because your time of full deliverance is here. That's what it means, full deliverance. Redemption draws nigh. How many know that in pregnancy, the day of birth is the day of deliverance? In a season of childbirth, in that time, in that season of childbirth, there are two stages in that day of delivery. And they're known as labor and delivery. Isn't it true? Labor and delivery. How many know that they never swap? You don't deliver and then labor. It's labor. Say. Jesus said when all these natural realm dramas begin to occur, this is actually your cue. You're given a nod by God. When he said the world is falling into utter chaos, it's literally the prompt that the church is now come to full term. That's what he was saying. It's full term, and it's time to go. And you know what he said? From this time on, when you begin to see all these things, from this time on, it's a new season. It's the season of labor and delivery. And it's labor until delivery, right? The church would say, yeah, well, we thought all this was happening before. You know, in a true pregnancy of a woman with a baby, how many have ever experienced or heard of the Braxton Hicks contractions? You know, they can last through a couple trimesters of the pregnancy. Women have experienced them even through a couple trimesters. They call them Braxton Hicks, but in the old day they called it false labor, or they called it practice labor. Practice labor. I never knew that. Jesus warns that there would be false labor, that there was going to be seasons of practice labor, Braxton Hicks in the spirit realm. Look at verse 16 of Matthew 24. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. I believe that World War I and World War II and the Korean War, but mostly when the wars where most of humanity sucked in. I believe that these are just times of extreme. People they pay so much attention to what's going on in the world. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of insecurity. I believe that these are the times of the practice labor that Braxton Hicks pays. I believe that. It's easy to look at evil men and be angry or hate them. It's easy to look at men that are just fools. And it's easy to become bitter and angry toward them. But how many understand they have no choice but to act the way that they're programmed? You can't hate them because they're wired to be this. You can't despise someone who is already, their brain is already, we say, why can't they understand? Because they're not wired to understand the way you do. Their brain is not wired. They have to respond a certain way. God has them wired like that. You say, Dan, I don't know that I believe that. They respond to invisible stimulation. They are literally a pawn or a puppet or a dupe in the whole process of what's going on. Look at Proverbs 16:4. The Lord has made all things for himself. How many believe that? Even the wicked for the day of evil. This is a reason he made the wicked. He made them for a certain season. How many know that's not a very Christian verse? God creates, it's literally anti-Christian. No, we got to pray that they be saved. They're not going to be. God created them for this. How many would rather see through the kingdom? The eyes of the kingdom. Wouldn't you rather see the way God sees, or would you just want to hold on to the way that you've always been taught? I'd rather see the way God sees. God creates wicked men for the day of evil. Literally, the day of evil translates the day of sorrow and trouble. If you see through the eyes of Christianity, you believe that the wicked men are everyone that's a non-Christian, this refers to them as wicked. That's absolutely not true. Wicked men are a specific group of people within the natural realm who were pre-programmed to respond to a certain stimuli for a purpose. How many know that Judas was pre-programmed to do exactly what he did? Is that true? How many know that Pharaoh, the Bible says, was programmed to be exactly who he was? That Esau, the Bible says, was pre-programmed to be exactly who he was. We don't like to think of that. It's not Christian. It makes us less loving. No, it doesn't. It makes God bigger than the box that I can put him in. Don't allow yourself to become emotionally invested in the world. Jesus said, don't be distracted. You'll see a lot of stuff happening. Don't be distracted. Don't become emotionally. How many know you're in the world but not of it? You still believe that? I know that it's harder to agree with that as you hear this. But it's true. You are in the world. You are not part of the world system. You're not here to fix the world. You can't. Only God can fix what's broken in the world. John 14. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go and prepare a place for you. Remember, wisdom designed the earth. And he modeled it after the design of heaven. Remember, the Bible says God created the heaven and the earth, but the earth was without form and void. So God said what? Let there be light. And guess what there was? Wisdom. And wisdom becomes the architect of the world. And he designed it after what? The heavens, which were already functioning